I think the biggest concern people have or stress people have is because they just don't know where they are and they don't know where they're going. That's got to be very stressful when you think like, I don't know if I'm okay or not. And to me, getting organized is the first step in that process. You're going from saving your entire life to like, okay, now I've got this finite amount of money that I've got to figure out how I can spend it. So I think being comfortable with that piece of it and understanding, okay, I'm actually okay spending this money. I think half my conversation with the clients, like, you can actually spend more money in retirement than you thought you could.
Welcome to the Sock Door Podcast, where life is messy, but we always find meaning in it. Every week, we pull out the stories, the lessons, and the hidden gems. And then we ask the big question, keep it or kick it? If you're ready for real talk, brave steps forward. I'm your host, Lisa Begley, and you're listening to the Sock Drawer Podcast. Let's jump right in. Hello and welcome, Sock Drawer family. Let me ask you something a little uncomfortable, all right? Have you been doing, let's say, all the right things with your money, 401k, savings, keeping your head above water, yet you're still wondering quietly, what if I run out of money when I retire? Well, today we're going to go ahead and pull that fear right out of the back of the drawer. My guest, Derek Mazzarella, he is a certified financial planner. He helps executives untangle complex stock plans, reduce their tax stress, and actually feel confident about retiring instead of terrified by it like most of us. He's the author of Just Retire Already, an unconventional retirement guide, where he breaks down the 7 big risks that can kind of derail all and the tools to address them, right? So derail retirement. We all struggle with that from time to time. He uses real stories, analogies, and even a few dad jokes along the way. We're going to talk to him about money, yes, for sure. But really, we're talking about freedom. We're talking about options and designing the next chapter that you're excited to wake up to instead of panicking every day. And what I love most, I think his superpower, if I could be straight with you, is taking complicated money topics, explaining them in a way that feels human, simple, and even maybe a little fun. Derek, welcome to the Sock Door Podcast family. We're so excited to have you in the studio today.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited for this today.
Absolutely. I know we wanted to hear all the things that you have going on. So before we dive into numbers, let's say, Derek, will you take us back a bit? What pulled you into this world of financial planning in the first place? Like, where did it all begin?
Sure. Well, my first job out of college was with Aflac. So everyone knows the duck. Not a lot of people actually know what they do. So that was a big challenge. But I was making cold calls every day, probably 100, 150 maybe a day, trying to work with small businesses. And then, I graduated in 2007, 2008 hits. I lost a lot of my clients because they worked at companies, they were laid off. But throughout that time, I had been networking with a financial planner, and he said, hey, look, I just moved up to a managerial role. Would you be interested in this? And I thought, I was always, interested about money. I was always reading Yahoo Finance and anything else I can get my hands on. And I thought, if I suck at it, at least maybe I can apply some of this stuff to my life moving forward.
Yeah.
So that was 2009. I had great timing because the market just went straight up basically from there. But that's essentially how I got into the business.
Okay, I love that. So financial was always kind of your interest, you would say.
Yeah, ironically though, I was a management major in college, so I wasn't even a finance major. So I think that's where you have to be a little bit open to opportunities that are in front of you, because I thought I was going to be a business consultant when I was in college, but that did not happen.
Okay, see, it's amazing how things change. We think one thing, but there's usually another plan involved. Well,
right.
Listen, I read that you've seen both sides of planning. So families who struggle because there wasn't a plan, and I feel like that's more the norm. And I may have that wrong, but I feel like that's more the norm. And families who were able to celebrate because there was a plan. What's one moment? What's one moment that really shaped how you work today? And what do you see on a regular basis with these families?
Sure. I'll actually, I'm going to share a personal story that had a really big impact on me when I first started. So I was probably a year or so into the business, and I was just having a conversation with my dad, and out of the blue, he goes, oh, your mom will be fine if I die. I was like, that's a really weird thing to say, just because it was totally unprovoked. And then I started getting into it with him. I was like, well, what do you have? And blah blah blah. And he's like, and my parents were just like every person, right? They did a really good job saving. They put all their money in their 401k. They try to pay down their house. I was like, okay, well, you've got most of your money in the 401k. You've got most of your money in the house. That's not liquid. At the time, he was under 60, so taking money out of his retirement plan, even if he passed away, would have been taxed and there would have been penalties. So my mom went out of access. So I went through all this stuff with him. And he also had some health issues. So I said, Dad, you should really get more life insurance. I knew he couldn't get it on his own. So I said, hey, you've got to, next time open enrollment comes on, get as much as you can through the company because they don't have any of that stuff. Unfortunately, about 8 months later, he passed away.
Oh, sorry.
But I realized that he did actually take my advice. So my mom was able to get some extra money because he did buy up as much as he could for insurance. She's in a much better financial spot. So to me, that's really shaped my world now, because now I can say, hey, look, I understand the impact I have on other people and can have on people. Generally, the outcomes are not that extreme, but that has been driving me ever since. And that was, really early on in my career. So I always have the focus of how can I improve someone's life and make sure they don't go backwards financially. How do we make sure we enjoy life, and how do we make sure we improve their situation from here on out?
I love that. Now, what do you see more often? Do you find that families are planning more, or are they preparing and kind of thinking about those things early on, or are they more in the line of like, it's all going to be okay, we'll worry about it later?
The biggest difference is between when I first started and now, there's just so much more information out there. I think people have a much better understanding of kind of the things they should be doing, but there's so much information overload that it's hard for them to really parse out, okay, does this impact me individually and personally? So I've been more of an information sorter for a lot of people. And then a lot of people have just been paralysis. They just are too afraid to move forward on anything because they don't know what the right thing is for them. So I think I've seen an uptick in people understanding some of the right concepts, but not really understanding how to apply them and implement them in their own lives.
Yeah. I love that's so perfect. Information sorter. Like that is, It is so true. The noise today out there it's hard to find the path to take, the person to trust, the company you want to work with. I was just talking to someone else about this the other day about being a good fit and making sure that, you are a fit with your financial planner. Do you find that to be important in your culture as well, that it's important for whoever you're dealing with to fit your kind of process?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, because when you have a relationship with a financial planner, it's going to be one of the bigger relationships you have in your life. Not to like toot my own horn or anything like that, but it just you're really making a lot of big decisions with that person, and they're going to be a part of your life for a while. Like people look, oh, I love my doctor. I'm like, okay, you see your doctor once a year for 15 minutes, maybe if you're lucky. You probably spend more time in the office waiting for them than actually talking to them. But with a financial planner, usually meeting 2, 3, 4 times a year, every year for 20 or 30 years. So that's a relationship you really want to make sure that you're a personal fit for. Yeah. You want to make sure they're listening to you, they understand your priorities, and they want to also understand the skill set, because financial planning is a really broad term. A lot of people don't know what, have preconceived notions about it. It's like, I get asked all the time, like, what's a hot stock? Like, okay, well, that's a very small part of what we do, but there are some advisors that do focus solely on investments, and there's some that focus on business owners, and some that focus on executives like myself, and some that will focus on, what other kind of demographic you can think of, whether it's, families with no kids or things like that. So I think often finding their expertise and aligning that with your situation is incredibly important.
That makes total sense. Now, let me ask you this. So let's say you have somebody who is, kind of midway through life. They have a 401k, they've established that, they have some things in place, but are still concerned. What do you say to them to sift through the noise? What is the best way to find somebody and something and a company they can trust and believe in? What should they be looking for out there to sift through it all?
Yeah, that's a really good challenge because honestly, when you look at a lot of advisor websites, they all sound the same: comprehensive planning or holistic planning. You see all these kind of buzzwords. So
Yeah.
that's very challenging. If the good news now is a lot of advisors will put information out there. So if you're kind of looking at, do they have a YouTube page or do they have a blog or do they post on LinkedIn, and what are they posting about, and does that sound like it's something that's part of my life, like in my situation? I think that's a good way to help screen that stuff out. But then, having a good list of questions when you go into these meetings with them, asking friends in a similar situation can help. But just really kind of thinking, okay, do you work with my type of person? Like, do you work with business owners? Are you working with career transition people? Do you work with most retirees? Like, what's your situation? And trying to really kind of suss out, does that person have an expertise in that area? Would be helpful, I think.
Great advice. So do a little research and bring some questions. Do a little research, and you might have to meet with several people.
Yeah, I would say definitely meet with at least
right
two or three. Yeah,
Okay.
and there's also a website called Broker Check.
Okay.
And there you can actually check and see if there's any red flags. Like, hey, do they have any issues with, taking money from a client, or there'll be any kind of I'm trying to think of the phrase, but yeah, if there's any issues that a client has had where they've actually had to go into the process of going to the higher eds like FINRA or whatever to say, hey, we had a real big issue with that. That'll show up right away.
Okay, I love that. So when someone meets you for the first time and says, hey, I'm terrible with money, Derek, how do you help them exhale and kind of feel safe leading into that conversation?
Yeah, the best comments I ever get are where people said, oh, I feel lighter after leaving this meeting. I mean, to me, that means I've done my job.
Yeah.
I think the real big thing is getting clarity on your situation first. Because the dumb analogy I always use is, imagine you're going on vacation. Like, do you just get in your car and start driving? Right? You pick your place first, then you pack your bags accordingly. Then you're like, all right, am I taking a plane or am I taking a car? Right? So that's the important thing we need to figure out, is where do you really want to go with your life, and really understanding what are our priorities, and then the next phase is, okay, let's get you organized and say, okay, because most people I found have kind of a whack-a-mole approach to their finances. Like, they have all these life events in front of them and they just, hit that mole. Okay, I got a house. Cool. Okay, I have kids now. I need life insurance. Okay, I got to save for 529. Oh, now we're hitting retirement. 401k. Boom. Right, and that's all they think about. So we really want to make sure that all of their finances are aligned and moving in the same direction versus just kind of doing things in a siloed approach.
Yeah. Derek, I feel like that could be a next book idea. Whack-a-mole finances. I feel like that could. Well, so speaking of your book, right, in Just Retire Already, I always say it like that because that's how it feels to me, right? Just retire already. You talk about 7 risks that can derail someone's retirement. For the person listening right now on a walk who's considering this, right, what are maybe 1 or 2 of the biggest risks they don't even realize they're facing?
I'd say the biggest risk that people underestimate in retirement is taxes, because taxes can really erode your wealth. And most people don't have a plan for it outside of what kind of deductions can I take this year?
The biggest tax implication could be your 401k for most people, right? Because that's going to be besides their house, maybe the biggest chunk of money that they will be dealing with. What do they leave it? Do they pull from it? Do they move it? What's the recommendation? And I know it can be different for everybody's financial situation, but what's the recommendation for that if someone's looking to retire?
Well, the one thing you really want to project out, and most people just kind of look at taxes as a kind of a back year end exercise. Okay, what kind of refund am I going to get? Can I take some deductions here or there? And then your accountant usually pats himself on the back. Hey, look how much money I got you back. But what I think is really helpful is really kind of outlining out and projecting out 10, 20, 30 years out. Okay, what are my taxes going to be in the future? You kind of base that on how much income you're going to need for expenses to cover. Where are my income sources coming from? Is it pre-tax 401k? Do you have any Roth money available? Do you have any investment accounts? Where's that money coming from? Because we're basically taught to put money in on a pre-tax basis our entire lives, and then push that tax burden all the way back until you have to take what's called the required minimum distribution. So as of right now, when you hit 73, IRS says, hey, we haven't taxed you on this money at all for 30 or 40 years. We want some of that tax money. So you have to take money out whether you need it or not. And what people have is kind of like this U-shaped retirement where their tax rate's up here while they're working. The first couple of years it drops down, and then the RMDs hit, and then it shoots back up again. So their tax brackets kind of dip up and then come down. And the question is, can we do anything in that valley to minimize taxes long term? And that's where having different tax buckets available can help, doing things like Roth conversions, and we can get in more detail on that if you want.
Yeah.
But all those different tools, like when are we taking money out of which account and projecting that stuff out, can really minimize taxes over the course of your retirement.
Wonderful. Is there a lot of information like what you just kind of went over in the book? Tell me more about the book itself and what brought you to write it.
Sure. So the book itself is really just kind of, outline those 7 risks that we kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
So I really kind of scare the crap out of you the first half of the book, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I ever going to retire? But then, then I was like, all right, we got to have a break here. Then I talk about all these different tools you have to combat all these risks in retirement. 'Cause there's things like longevity and taxes that I mentioned, but also, healthcare is a really big expense, and people don't often have a long enough conversation about that, and even just kind of thinking about where they live can impact their healthcare costs. So really just kind of going through like, all right, understanding what's ahead of me, and then looking at some of the tools I have available to me. Not all the tools are going to be a fit for everyone, but I just at least want to lay them out and say, okay, these are some strategies that I've used with my own family and I've used with my clients. And what really kind of caused me to write the book is I just kind of had this idea. And the problem is with our job is, I can only work with so many people, and I work with a lot of retirees, and I thought, well, how can I get this message out to more people? And then the book idea came out where I basically had an analogy for every kind of risk and every tool, and I just would kind of go through it that way. And I just started writing it every night for about an hour, and then it kind of slowly worked from there.
Amazing. So a lot of my listeners, they're in their 50s or early 60s, and they feel like they're late to the game. What do you say to those folks, right, who they're afraid they've started too late? What's their first step?
Yeah, I think the first step, I would just take a step back and pause, because most people that feel that way are actually in a much better spot than they are. I think the biggest reason we have that fear is because we have a lot of uncertainty. We have never looked out, okay, well, how much do I actually need in retirement? What does that look like? Mm-hmm. How long could my money last for? Like, these are questions that people have, because I think the number one fear across the board is, am I going to run out of money? Yeah. And you touched on that kind of in the intro. But when you go through it, you really want to look at, okay, what am I saving now? Because, the general rule of thumbs are, if you're saving between 10 to 15, 20% of your income right now, you're probably going to be fine. If you feel like you're behind, the good news is the IRS allows a lot of catch-up options, so you could save more into retirement than someone that's under 50. You can mix and match your tax dollars. So there's a lot of different levers you can pull. I think the first step, that was really kind of just assessing where you are today and really understanding, like, am I actually behind? And if I am, what do we do about it?
Okay. So That's amazing. Now, and I assume that you help people outside your local space or area. You would help anybody. They don't have to be located where you are.
No, I actually used to live in Boston, and I still have clients in Massachusetts. I'm in Connecticut now. With Zoom and everything like that, everyone just works virtually. So I've got clients in 13 or 14 different states. So
Love that.
It's more about making sure that, hey, we're a good fit, and the location is a good fit. And I feel like a lot of people Google advisor near me, and that's not always the best fit. You want to find someone that's actually good for you.
Yes, 100%. And so where can people find you, or, your company? Where can they find you?
The easiest way is actually my website, justretirealready.com. And that has a little bit more info on the book and more info about me and kind of who I work with typically. I'm very transparent, so all my fees are on the website. So you have to guess, like, well, how does he make money? Because that's always a big question with financial advisors. So I want to be very transparent. That's already out there.
Okay, you guys, so there's that. And your specialty, Derek, specialty is helping busy executives with complex stock plans, RSUs, and a big tax bill. So for those of us who hear that and immediately want to hide and bury their head in the sand, that would include me, what does that actually mean in plain English?
Well, sure. So basically, a lot of executives will get a bonus every year. And think of it this way. Instead of getting a bonus in actual cash, they get a bonus in stock. Oh. Right? So imagine if you're given, hey, here's $10,000. Would you immediately turn around and buy your own company stock with it? Almost no one says yes. But a lot of companies are doing that because they want you to stay, because they can set what's called a vesting schedule where you have to be there 3 or 4 years before you collect all of that bonus, essentially. So there's a lot of rules around the types of stock. Like I have one client, she gets paid 4 different types of stock in the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what are common mistakes that you see people make with company stock?
Well, I think the big one is they just hold on to it forever. They don't ever sell it. They just keep it. It keeps accumulating. They kind of have it like in the proverbial sock drawer that they never open.
Yeah.
That they just keep it there, and then it accumulates and becomes a really big part of their asset mix and their overall holdings. And the challenge is most companies actually do not beat the S&P 500. So you get a lot of risk concentrated in, okay, my job's with this company and a lot of my wealth is tied up in this one company. What happens if the company goes belly under? Or what happens if there's a big issue? Or what happens when the market drops just as I need to sell the stock for retirement or for a house or whatever? So that's one piece of it for sure.
Okay, perfect. So now take me back to your client with four different types of stocks in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that, by strategy, by design?
Let's put the company though. So the company's packages will determine, okay, hey, you've reached another level up. Usually starts a director, then it goes executives, vice presidents, all that stuff. So as you get higher up the corporate ladder, you typically get more complex stock options. So there's the stock options she gets, there's restricted stock units, incentive stock comp. So there's a lot of different terms. They all have a little bit of different tweaks and rules to them. And it's important to know, okay, when are they taxed? When do I actually get this money? What does it look like if I buy it at a discount? So those are all things you have to kind of map out and figure out. Okay, and there's also timing of when you get this stuff. And there's rules around how much they withhold. A lot of times executives have a good salary and they're in a higher tax bracket, but they withhold a much lower amount. So then people get a surprise tax bill come April because they didn't plan for the proper amount that was withheld.
Yeah. I know this is true across the board. There's so much strategy that goes into, I guess, organizing your finances, right?
Yeah.
And so on our show, we talk a lot about reinvention. How do money, stock plans, taxes, how do they either trap somebody in a job they've outgrown or give them permission to actually walk into a new chapter? Like what kind of strategies go into figuring that out?
Great question. And I think the company stock is a great way and great leverage tool for employees because they can build so much wealth through that. And if they do it correctly, they can create a lot more freedom in their world than they normally would have. I mean, it can trap you in a company because, hey, it's always the next thing. And, if you just stay another year, you get another tranche of the bonus. And if, you hear from management above you saying, oh, those stocks can do great. We're having a great quarter. Trust me, like, even though it's down 30% this year, it's gonna come back. Like, I hear that all the time. And that, in a way, can mentally trap you in the company. But that same client I'm talking about, she wants to retire at 50. And because we have a plan for all of her stock, she's on track to do that. And she says, there's a lot of people on my same level that aren't doing this, and I don't understand why. And it's probably because of that first thing where they just feel a little more trapped in the company. But if you have a plan for your stock and you manage the tax piece correctly and you sell it correctly and you diversify away from it, it can create a lot of opportunity for you in general because you have that extra lever that a lot of people don't have because that stock bonus is generally pretty hefty especially as you get up the corporate ladder.
Yeah. Okay. So for the person listening who has equity or stock benefits, but no idea how to think about it, and maybe they're not quite high up that ladder yet, what's one simple step someone could take, maybe even this week, to just get more clarity?
Yeah, I would probably combine this in one thing. So there's two things I would do I would get a handle on your vesting schedule. So know kind of like when the stocks are coming due for you, because when they vest, they become yours.
Okay.
So if you have an understanding of, okay, this is exactly when they vest, you can create a plan around that. And then B, I would just look at what do you have for holdings and figure out what's the actual dollar value, and then kind of look at a little bit of the stock price and how has that done over the last couple of years? Has it been a good company? Has it been a bad company? Should I sell this stuff right away? Because you get taxed right when it vests. So it vests, it becomes yours, and you get taxed on it.
Yeah.
After that, you could do anything you want with the stock.
It's all you. Okay. All right. great advice. Many people, let me ask you this, kind of shifting gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, many people worry, right? Who am I without my job?
Mhm.
What have you seen that helps people prepare emotionally for that identity shift?
That's such an important question to ask, Lisa, and I ask it all the time with my clients because you really want to know what's going to give you meaning when you stop working. Because especially executives, you're working, a lot longer, 9, 10-hour days typically, and that's a big part of your life.
Yeah.
So you really want to help them kind of figure out, all right, what do my next step look like? How am I spending my time? Like I had a client I asked that question to, and he decided to work for another year to kind of figure it out. But now he's retired this year. He's spending a lot of time with his grandkids. He's got a plan. He's like, I'm actually busier now than I was before, and I'm loving retirement. And, so I think just asking yourself that question, okay, well, what's going to give me meaning? A lot of the times is, what am I enjoying from my job now that I can do later on retirement without all maybe the BS politics part of the job and all this stuff I hate.
Yeah.
I think I always have this what's light and what's heavy conversation to you with clients. So if
Yeah.
something feels really light, I enjoy doing it. I want to go do that more. Like what part of that job feels that way for you? And can you do that in some other capacity in retirement? And what would that look like? So I think that's a very important exercise to go through and think about it.
So true. And, it kind of like what's something that people need to retire that no longer serves them to feel a little bit more confident looking at retirement or heading into that, like kind of a play on words, but let go of or, put aside to be able to move forward into that realm. Is there something specific financially or even emotionally?
Well, that's tough because it's a little different for every person. I think one of the challenges because you're making a complete shift in your life when you retire, and you're going from on the money side, you're going from saving your entire life to it's like, okay, now I've got this finite amount of money that I've got to figure out how I can spend it. So I think being comfortable with that piece of it and understanding, okay, I'm actually okay spending this money. I think half my conversation with clients, like you can actually spend more money in retirement than you thought you could. Go enjoy that stuff. Like what's something you've been putting off that you haven't done that you want to just do? Let's go plan for that. Let's build that into your plan. And I think that's important to give yourself the permission slip to say, okay, yes, I can do this from a financial standpoint. And then I think on the emotional side, it's really just kind of figuring out, that purpose thing, like what's my phase 2 going to look like?
Yeah.
Is it spending more time with family? Is it a new hobby that I've been putting off for 20 years? Is it traveling? Is it a combination of it? So it's really going to be, you really want to think about what does my life look like where I feel like getting up every day and I'm not just going to be like, okay, do I just watch Price is Right again or something?
Yeah. Yes. Nobody wants to do that. Let's paint for listeners, anybody listening, painting a realistic picture, but a hopeful picture, because I think people, seem fearful of retirement and they hang on so long. What's your recommendation? Painting a hopeful picture. What's possible if they start taking small steps now? Does it depend like, oh, I want to be on a yacht and I want to travel the world, or I want to, I'm good to like play golf 3 days a week and watch one episode of Jeopardy or, Price is Right, whatever it is, does all of that weigh into kind of painting that hopeful picture?
Yeah, I think we're getting real clarity on designing your life first and then building your plan around that is probably the most important thing you could do, because that's going to determine, am I saving enough? Am I spending too much? All of those things flow from your design of your life first.
Yeah.
And then we can always kind of figure out the math on the back end from that standpoint. But you really want to look at, okay, what's going to make me truly happy and what can I do in retirement that I'm going to really enjoy?
Derek, that is so hard to do. Like for me, I know I couldn't imagine like that I would be doing this, and that this would be kind of my world and that I loved it. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you'd asked me, okay, what does retirement look like for you? I'd have been like, oh, retirement? Is that happening? I don't think so.
It's got to be tough. And one of the things I always bring up too is, I talk a lot about, all right, maybe you're not fully retiring. Is there something you want to do 2 days a week? Yeah. Well, does that mean volunteering, or does that mean you're consulting, or are you just going into the office? Because I think a lot of times it's just having that, okay, that's the thing I'm doing. I know I'm good at it. I still want to have that social impact of talking with coworkers, because that's a huge piece of it too.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I think our definition of retirement is so different than it was with our grandparents' generation, where it's like, okay, you got your pension, you've got your little bit of savings,
Yeah.
go nuts. Now it's more, okay, is there some work involved with that? And what does that look like? And, some clients, it's like, all right, well, maybe you can retire a couple years earlier, but if you just made $50,000 a year for the next 5 years, you'll be in the same spot anyway.
Yeah.
So those are conversations you could definitely have. There's no one right way to do retirement anymore, and I think it's really cool that people are opening up to different possibilities.
So many different possibilities. I mean, the world is so open to you. I love that you said that. So is there anything else, before we jump into our DoorDash, is there anything else that you want to make sure that our listeners know and hear for them to really get a handle on their finances? Is there anything specific?
Yeah, I think honestly, the first step, I think the biggest mistake I see with a lot of people is they just don't know where things are or how much they have. They've never really gotten organized. Like a lot of people, I think, have that junk drawer philosophy where it's, oh, I've got this life insurance policy, or they got that drawer where all their important finance stuff is there, but they don't know exactly how much is in each account. So I think the biggest thing that you really want to make sure is just figuring out, where am I right now and how am I tracking that? To me, that can add so much value to your life, because like I said, I think the biggest concern people have or stress people have is because they just don't know where they are and they don't know where they're going. And that's got to be very stressful when you think like, I don't know if I'm okay or not. And to me, getting organized is the first step in that process. Okay.
And on your website, Derek, are there tools and resources they can pull from to try to organize? Or what do you, where can they go? What do you recommend if they're not ready?
I have a bunch of tools on the website, that will direct them. Actually, they're kind of tied to the book too. Awesome. So there's a lot of different Excel sheets they have and questionnaires. I have a retirement checklist people can check out to say, okay, am I on track? Are there things to think about that I'm not aware of? So I'd probably start with things like that. Just real basic, probably take you 5-10 minutes each to look at.
Perfect. All right, you guys, you heard it. So the website again is, tell me, Derek.
JustRetireAlready.com.
And you have to say it like this, just retire already.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So we're going to transition into a more fun, not that it wasn't fun, but a fun segment of our show here. It's called the 60-second DoorDash. And I'm just going to fire some quick questions at you and just say, don't overthink it. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure.
And are you ready?
Ready. Let's do it.
Okay. First job you ever had and what it taught you about money.
First job I ever had was I worked at the YMCA. I was a soccer coach, a basketball coach, a T-ball coach for kindergarten through second graders. My most fun job I ever had, actually.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that taught me about money is all those line items that you get out of your paycheck. I was like, well, I thought I was making this. Why am I only getting this? So understanding how taxes work and Social Security and all those deductions was probably the first introduction I had to that.
All right. That's awesome. Word your friends would use to describe you in high school.
Funny.
Okay. Song you'd play. I love this because of your background. Song you'd play to hype yourself up before a big money conversation.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Anything by AC/DC would get me going, I would say.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, that or Nirvana. Nirvana would be good. Yeah.
I was going to say, I see that Nirvana poster back there. Coffee order when you're in focus mode.
I'm very boring with the coffee. It's black.
Okay, that's all right. Yep. It works if it works. One money myth you'd love to retire forever.
The 4% withdrawal rate.
Okay, if you could give your 30-year-old self one retirement tip in a single sentence, what would you say?
One retirement tip would probably be stuff the Roth as much as you can.
Like make it bigger.
Yeah, put as much money in the Roth as you can. Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Beach, vacation, city adventure, or stay at home with a good book. What's your go-to retirement day?
Give me the beach all day.
All day, every day. And listen, book, besides your own, what's a book that shifted how you think about life or money?
I think The Psychology of Money is a really good book to read to shift your psychology of how you think about money. One of the concepts I love there is the enough factor, like what's enough for me. That was one of the things I think about all the time.
The Psychology of Money. I've seen that.
Yeah.
I forget who writes it. I see it all the time. Okay.
Morgan Housel. Yep.
Thank you. All right. So Tiny Dare time. This is when, Derek, I ask my guests to give our listeners one doable step, something simple that they could implement today or within the next 24 to 48 hours, something simple that they could, an actionable thing, put into play right away. And it could be about financial, it could be about anything. It doesn't have to be finances. What would you offer them today?
I would say I still see a lot of people with a decent amount of savings in their savings account. Look at a high yield savings account. They're generally earning 3 to 3.5%, whereas your savings account is earning nothing. Open one up and move your emergency fund to the high yield savings. Simple, easy. Could add another $2,000 to $3,000 a year to your life.
I love that. Derek, thank you so much for taking the time. This is an intimidating conversation for so many of us. And I think turning it into a conversation that I feel like we're actually having just around the kitchen table with friends has been super helpful. So you guys, listeners, if today stirred up some questions about your own next chapter, that's a good sign. We want that. You don't have to figure it all out this week, but you can take one brave step toward a clearer, more calmer path, as we've learned from Derek. And we'll link Derek's book in the show notes when this comes out, and his retirement resources in the show notes so you can keep learning. We'll also go ahead and put that broker check website in there. And as always, pick a tiny dare, one small drawer to sort through. Start there and enjoy the rest of your day. All right, we'll see you next time on the Sock Drawer Podcast.
All right, Sock Drawer family, that's a wrap on today's Drawer Dump. Big thanks to our guests for sharing their story and their heart with us. Until next time. Don't forget, life's too short for mismatched socks. Retire the ones with holes, inspire the ones that still shine. See you soon.